Welcome to Sports Lab Overtime. I'm Justin Baxley, as promised, joined by Lauren McGill today. Lauren, I think we've all been really excited here from Billy Napier's one of the bigger critics, I would say, on Sports Lab. I think that's probably fair, right? You got a lot of opinions on Billy. I think the last time I had you on here, you mentioned that it was like you felt like his record, and you think you were accurate, is the worst since they were playing with leather football helmets. So, Lauren, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Tell us a little bit about what this week, really, the last 48 hours, 72 hours, with all the news, the new leaks, the things that are coming out about booster meetings, who was there, how many, all that stuff. But basically it boiled down to that at best he's coaching for his job on Saturday, but potentially that it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Well, the thing is that I've been down this road before of getting hopeful that Billy Napier is going to leave my program. And getting your hopes up is just that. It's setting you up to be ultimately disappointed. So I've been down the road of disappointment before with hearing that he was going to be fired, but this year I feel like it's a little bit different, especially with what has been going down in the last 48 hours. I mean, with all of, you could potentially call them rumors, but it's also the fact that they're just not, because Scott Strickland did meet with, I was told that originally there was boosters, and they said, our money or no money, basically, like, you got to get this stuff in check. But recent foundings was that it was like one booster, like one really big booster who was saying like, hey, he was basically like the one who's kind of like one of the most important, and then like looks over the rest of them as like, we're kind of all on the same team here, of saying like, figure this out with Billy now. And it's the best time to do it because yes, there's a bye week next week, which gives 2 weeks to figure out how to cope without him, which I feel like shouldn't be very hard. And I do think that this team would play better without him. Now, there's some speculation of, you really want to leave them with no head coach? Like, yeah, I do. I really do, because I think I could get on the field and coach better than him at this point. And then I also heard, like, he's really not a bad coach. He, some of his play calling, sure, but he's a good recruiter. Wrongo, because his recruiting stats really weren't the highest until he got someone like DJ Lagway, which brought the recruits with him. When people see that you have 5-star DJ Lagway coming in from Willis, Texas, they want to join him. So I wouldn't even credit Billy with that much. I would credit it to DJ Lagway. He got DJ. Good on him. And then the other thing is that maybe he's not the worst coach in the world. I'm saying maybe. And maybe his play calling at all. But it's definitely not built for the SEC. And that's where I think he's just his league. He's an amazing guy, great guy. I love Billy Napier as a person, super nice guy. But the second he touches a football field, that's when all hell breaks loose, to be honest with you. And I'm sitting there biting my tongue because I'm on the sideline with my camera, and I'll shout, "What's wrong with you? Why do you hate me? Why do you hate this? Are you trying to lose on purpose? Do you really need the buyout that much? I don't know if he wants new shoes, new house, or something. I don't know. I don't care." But he's taken what used to be such a respectable program, and people would see Florida on their roster and they're like, oh, this is going to be a hard one. It's not that way anymore. I don't know how Vanderbilt of the SEC, but now Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia, oh good. Clark Lee is an amazing coach. That's actually one person that I'd be okay with coming to Florida. People don't take this program seriously anymore, and that started with Billy Napier in 2022. Hasn't had a good record since 21-23. That's the worst record since the 40s with Raymond Wolf, I believe is his last name, and they were like 13-24 or 34, something like that. Of course, his numbers aren't that bad, but that's the degree that people are comparing him to. So I want to see him gone. I know that all of Gainesville wants to see him gone. Hope he finds another job that has nothing to do with my school.
Well, folks, I told you it was going to be fiery. Lauren, I think you exceeded all expectations with that rant there. I haven't heard you get, I don't know, I've heard you get fiery. I haven't heard you get that to that level yet. So that was
me keeping it tame too.
That actually doesn't surprise me. Look, you bring up a lot of good points. Look, I think you speak for a lot of fans out there that are just disappointed. I think it's kind of like when you're a parent that you're not mad anymore with him. You're just not. You're just disappointed at this point.
Yep.
And I think that's what a lot of fans have felt, specifically not necessarily just with Billy, but with Scott Strickland. I think it's it goes beyond just the head coach. It goes above that. And that there seem to be points where that could have been turned around, or that things could have worked out. Specifically, one of the big reports that came out this week, and it was a nugget in the USA Today story, that frankly I didn't know would ever see the light of day. I think we had heard the rumors about Charlie Weiss Jr. before, that, that Florida had offered or was poking around. But I don't know that we ever got to the point of he was offered and basically to be the play caller. We got that this week. But I guess my big question is you were told you had to go get an offensive coordinator. If that's true, offensive coordinator, you tried one guy, got told no, and then you were just like, I'm done. I'll just continue to call my own plays. It's like, I don't know. It's like, are you like when you're getting ready to ask a girl to prom, and the first one says no, do you just give up and go sit at the Waffle House and wait on all your friends to get home after instead? You probably go ask a couple more people. You at least check around and see, maybe you aim for the class first and kind of work your way down a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, who's to say that he didn't show up with the most ridiculous offer in the world just to say that he did it? Like, hey, I'll give you $20 to come call plays for us. No, I'm not doing that. Oh man, I tried. Shucks. Guess I am the play caller. And you know how bad that makes him look too? Is he had the chance to go get someone who is a talented offensive coordinator and would have brought a lot to this program. He says no, and you're left being the play caller, and people have questioned it every single week at the press conference. I'm there week, and they ask him if he's going to continue doing it, and he says, yes, it's worked for us so far. What's worked? Please tell me what's worked.
In fairness, he didn't say it worked. He just said it's what got us here. I don't know that it was.
He really believes in himself.
Maybe, but overall, though, I mean, again, it goes back to, as a whole, and I talked about this yesterday, was the expectations for every program is different. At Louisiana, this is what you expect. He was 40-12 at Louisiana. That's really good for the Sun Belt. That's a really good coach at that level. We talked about James Franklin and what Penn State's expectations were. Well, their expectations for over 10 years was get 10 wins and make the playoffs every now and again. That changed this year. They wanted a national championship. They thought they had the roster to win a national championship, and all of a sudden, 3 losses. James Franklin is gone. He's out of there. And so it's all about expectations, and I think that wherever they go next, they've got to set the expectations early of, especially next year's schedule being a lot easier than the last 2 seasons. Year one, there's no reason the new coach coming in and have an 8-4, 9-3 record immediately, especially if whoever they bring in is able to retain some of this roster, or at least the key points. Hannah Getman and Rob Rousseau yesterday, they talked a little bit about that, Lauren. And one of the topics that they mentioned, we put it up as a YouTube poll. What players would you, if you're the next head coach? We've made Lauren McGill the next head coach of the Florida Gators.
Smart choice.
Great choice. You proved Nate wrong a couple of weeks ago, which you've been living off of that for a little bit. But we've now made you the head coach of the Florida Gators. Who are your first calls as far as on the roster to try to retain them, to keep them in the program? I think this is interesting because I think this is exactly what happened when a new coach comes in. When Georgia had Kirby Smart come in, the first thing he did was call Jacob Eason, who at the time was the number 1 recruit, quarterback recruit in the class, and he called him, and then he called, I think it was Ben Cleveland, who's the offensive lineman, to help protect him. Who would you be on the phone with trying to say, hey, come play for Lauren McGill?
To keep them here, I would say Dallas Wilson might be one of my first, 100%. I would say VB3, but I think that he is dedicated to UF, considering he's a generational legacy here. I think that his loyalty to UF would outweigh who his coach is, which I'm just hopeful that it would be, I guess. So I feel like I'd be pretty satisfied with Vernell Brown staying. But Dallas Wilson would probably be first. Jalen Ball is 7th in rushing yards. So, Rob and Hannah were saying yesterday that they think that he could be replaced. I really just doubt that as much. Like, yeah, anyone can be replaced, but not everyone is Jaden. I think that he is one of the best running backs that I've seen personally on a Florida roster like this. And I do think that there's a lot of talent that fuels this roster regardless of what anyone says. And it's just the lack of coaching that you get how talented they are. Dallas Wilson would probably be number one. If I felt the need to convince VB3, then probably him too, then Jaden Ball. I don't want to see J. Mike leave just yet. If I could do something about that, I would.
I think he's a redshirt senior, so I think he's gone regardless.
Regardless?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's played out his eligible. He was at Cal and UCLA for a little bit, and so he was there for 2 or 3 years, and now he's here for his last year, which is sad. I mean, he was going to get a big senior season and hope that you get to go play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really been able to showcase himself the way that we thought. He had a great freshman year. His sophomore year and junior year left a lot to be desired because he didn't have the quarterback to throw to him in the way that we thought he was going to have with DJ Lagway and hopefully put himself in a conversation to be a top pick. But, just some of the bigger names, I mean, I'll throw them out there to you that where do you stand on DJ Lagway and Tramel Jones? Are they on your list to call?
Tramel Jones, I was actually going to say Tramel Jones and Aiden Mizell would be next because I would like to see both of those guys stay. I would truthfully prefer to keep the people I said, Aiden Mizell, VB3, Dallas Wilson, Tramel Jones. If it was those 4 guys over DJ, I'm taking those 4 guys.
Wow.
Because not that DJ is not a talented quarterback. We know that he is. We've seen what he's done last year. We've seen a little bit of what he's capable of this year. But he is just so injury prone, and he has become the kind of player that I've said this for weeks now, that Billy feels like he's almost creating play calling with a bubble with him. I want a quarterback like Byron Brown who can run straight through someone else's defense and can throw the ball down the field at the same time, can run if they need to. And DJ's just not one of those guys. He's not going to be someone who runs through a defense that looks like LSU or, Miami. He's going to be the guy that sits in the pocket and relies on Jaden Ball. So it's not like I don't want him to stay, but I do think that he could be replaced.
I mean, yeah. Look, it also depends on who the coach is, right? There are coaches that would probably want to bring their own quarterback with them. There's certainly names out there. I mean, I guess with Lane Kiffin, it would be probably Trinidad Chambliss or I guess Austin Simmons. I don't know what his eligibility looks like, but there are coaches that may prefer their own guy, somebody they've already been working with, to go ahead and bring them with them if they've got the eligibility left to do it. A couple of the names on defense that stood out to me when I was kind of looking through the roster, Miles Graham, Jaden Woods. I think Rob said Aaron Gates, defensive back, another big name for you. And look, I think the whole point of this, the exercise though, Lauren, is there's a lot of talent on this team. Mm-hmm. Yes, DJ Lagway was a big part of bringing a lot of these guys in. Billy, I mean, I'll give him his due. He brought he brought these guys in. Sure, some of that was around the hype of being able to play with DJ Lagway, like I mentioned with J. Mike. And I think being able to play in the swamp still means something to the kids. But at the end of the day, the Band-Aid has to get ripped off at some point. Sounds like it's going to be ripped off very soon. And with that in mind, I mean, we start looking ahead to the future. And I think at the end of the day, as talented as the roster is, you're going to lose some guys, and you just have to accept that. There's going to be a lot of these. I mean, they play hard for Billy. I'll give him credit. He has a lot of guys that still believe in him, love him on this roster. So there will be some guys that are, quote, Billy Napier guys that won't play for the University of Florida next year because they wanted to keep their coach, right? There's going to be some that are willing to stay. The Verdell Browns, you hope that legacy, that he's just going to want to stick around. But at the end of the day, you still have to go ahead and move on. You can't just tie it to 1 or 2 years of your favorite player just in hopes that he can turn it around. So if it means losing a DJ Lagway or it means losing a Dallas Wilson, sometimes that just has to be done. You can't tie it to one player. Oh, and I think to some degree, it's why maybe moves weren't made a year ago. You were scared to lose the DJ Lagways of the world. What we see now, that if you tie it to one player or even a group of players, if you tie all that together and you still go 6-6 or worse, it doesn't really matter who's on the field. You still need to make a change. So, with that in mind, Lauren McGill, what's the short list for you? I mean, everybody seems to have their own little wish list. I've got quite a few Gator fans sending me theirs. My best friend from back home is a Gator fan, and he continues constantly updating he's been doing it for a while now, for the last month and a half maybe. Since the USF lost, he started updating a list. He's got a list that he keeps on his iPhone notes. There's been each week somebody gets taken off, maybe one person gets added, somebody moves up. Do you have a little wish list going of your own?
I definitely have been thinking about it since the USF game as well. I've actually been thinking about it since last season. If it were a perfect world, Lane Kiffin would walk into Gainesville and run the streets. Unfortunately, I don't see Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss. I really don't. He feels very embedded when he's in Oxford. If you have seen the documentary, he thanks Oxford for a lot of what he has now. I mean, his daughter goes there. I don't know what grade she's in. I don't know when she's graduating or anything, but I also know that his son is looking at colleges already, and Florida is one of the ones that he's looking at, and he has already said, I will not play for my dad. So that means if we lose Lane Kiffin's son, whatever. But I really don't think that he will leave Ole Miss anytime soon. Again, perfect world, he walks in here, we high five, we're best friends. But I really don't think that's going to happen. Another one that has been on people's mindset is Serengeti leaving Indiana. That's another one that I don't see that happening anytime soon either. Again, that's my second perfect world. I've talked about Marcus Freeman. I also just don't think that he's going to leave Notre Dame. They have so much money. And he, went to playoffs last year. He did well with Notre Dame. I mean, so did James Franklin. He's gone. But that's someone else that I don't think would come here is James Franklin. I can see, if I'm, throwing out the cards and placing them where they lie, whatever, if Serengeti came here, then James Franklin goes to Indiana. I could see that playing out. But someone that I feel like hasn't been talked about a little bit is Clark Lee, Vanderbilt's head coach. I think that he would do sensationally well here because he knows how to run an offense, as we've seen in the last couple of years, especially with a quarterback like Diego Pavia. And I think that he would be able to do really well with the talent that the Gators have on offense. And he is able to be one of those coaches that takes a step back from himself. So if things were to go, awry, he can take a step back and know that he has a supporting staff that can take that for him. And like I said, Vanderbilt used to be the laughingstock. That's how I've always remembered them. And that is no more. That is not how Vanderbilt is looked at. They are a very, very talented football team. And I think a lot of that has to do with Clark Lee. So he's someone else that I think about. I know that there's been talks about Mike Norvell. I don't see him fitting this culture. I really don't. Because FSU is calling for him to be gone. But I don't know. There's some people that think that he could do well here. If he were to ever come here, which I don't think he should, I would need to have a sit-down conversation with him because I can't trust him right away. You're coming from the worst school in the entire world. I'm sorry. Bleed orange and blue. I can't accept someone from FSU unless they talk to me first. But Clark Lee would be number one, probably.
We'll definitely put him through the Lauren McGill vetting process.
Very tricky process.
It is. Look, I feel like as even coming here as a teacher, whatever it is that I'm doing here, even I feel like I've gone through the Lauren McGill vetting process. It's a difficult one. You gotta earn some trust.
You made it out alive.
I did. I made it to the other side. Now we're getting to do Sports Lab overtime together a couple times. It's been fun. You mentioned quite a few names there. Look, Kirk Cignetti is, to me, the problem with him is he's older, and he's 64, I believe. And so, is he a guy that sticks around for 6 years, and then at that point he starts to look at retirement, and whatever he's built, if he's built a playoff contender, then the only way I could see that is if he's got a really high-level coordinator coming in behind him, similar to what Urban Meyer and Ryan Day did at Ohio State, where you basically are signing up for, okay, you're getting 6 years of Cignetti / Urban Meyer, and then you're going to get 6 years of really high-value coordinator, Ryan Day. That would be the only scenario I think where Kirk Cignetti works, is that what Florida needs is long-term stability. This is like their fourth coaching search, or will be, whenever the news comes. It seems more likely than not at this point. It'll be the fourth coaching search in the playoff era. That's a lot of coaching searches in a 10-year span. While you've got some of the chief rivals that have kept their coaches for a good bit longer. And so you're starting to look at that and you're saying, okay, well, if Cignetti is a little bit older, I like Clark Lee. I mean, the last time Vanderbilt was relevant before him was with James Franklin. And James Franklin's been at Penn State for, a decade.
Seasons,
12 seasons. And so before that was the last time that I remember Vanderbilt being good enough to beat any team in the SEC. They were the ones that were going on the I think Mississippi State's gone over 720-something days without winning an SEC game, which is the opponent for this weekend. Those were the kind of runs that you saw Vanderbilt go on back in between James Franklin and Clark Lee. I think Clark Lee's an interesting name. I think that's one that, is it the hottest name on the market? No. But it might make the most sense is to go after somebody. This was a question I asked yesterday in the YouTube comments. Do they have to hire, quote unquote, a big fish? I know Rob Rousseau on Sports Lab mentioned that he thought they were going to take a swing and go get a big fish. Well, big fish to me is the Lane Kiffins, the James Franklins. I don't even know that I'd consider Kirk Cignetti a big fish. He's a medium-sized fish. He's getting there. He's eating his the little stuff you put in a fish tank.
His
I don't
Wheaties.
know. Yeah, his Wheaties. But anyway, to me, even those aren't necessarily the big fish. It's the Lane Kiffins. It's James Franklin. There's one or two I'm probably blanking on, but I just, for me, I think that maybe there is a time to kind of take a step back, and this is what I mentioned yesterday. Take a step back, identify what your expectations are, especially for the first few seasons. What are going to be your expectations of the coach? And hire to the expectation. If your expectation is you want to win 10 games and make the playoff, well, James Franklin might be a guy to call. Look, he already has a home here. He already lives in Florida. He's, that's his off-season place, and he knows the area. So, I mean, maybe that's the guy you call. If it's you want a brash, offensive-minded guy, you call up Lane Kiffin. If you want somebody that runs a really respectable program that has had some success, Marcus Freeman. But if you want a guy that has taken a program that hasn't done a whole lot in the past, but can bring you up and build the program out, that's a little bit more gritty. I mean, I don't think nobody would argue that. That's what Diego Pavia and Clark Lee have been able to do at Vanderbilt. It's a very gritty program. They're gonna grind. I mean, even a couple weeks ago when they lost to Alabama, that was a grinded out kind of game Alabama had to go through. So I think that's an interesting one, Lauren.
Alex Golish was also a name that I saw thrown around, USF's head coach, but I don't see him coming here. But luckily, whoever does, like we were talking about expectations, like it's so hard to do a worse job than Billy did. So like at least you're coming in with like the bar's on the floor right now. Like I said, people don't view this program as respectful and significant as it has been seen in years past. Like Urban era or Spur era or even a lot of Muschamp and Mullen era, I still think that they were both gone too soon. I don't care. I'll say it. But any coach that comes in, it's going to be so hard to do worse. And since the bar is low, I find it hard to come in and not do well. And that's why I do think that it should be a big coach. That's another reason, because the last time that we went and got a guy that was from a smaller conference, he's standing right behind you. And look at what he's done to this school. He took this program, a respected program, and did a 180 with it. The Gators are not respected in the SEC as much anymore, which is, as a student and as a fan, is just so hard to see and hear. Like all my friends are like, we suck, we're probably not even going to beat Mississippi State. I'm like, you know how hard it is to stand on that hill by myself? It's getting colder and colder of saying, guys, I believe in this team. I'm not saying I believe in the coach. I'm saying I believe in the team and the players. And it's starting to become a very, very lonely hill, and it has been for a while, because I just want to win. I'm sorry. Like, who doesn't, you know? So any coach that comes in, I'm going to have a higher expectation, but also it's not that hard to achieve what hasn't been done in years.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think you're right that the bar is technically going to be on the floor, but we all know that Florida fans are not going to really have the bar on the floor. The reason I say that is how quickly Dan Mullen was run out of here. And look, and I know the recruiting comments and stuff were a really big part of why he was run out of town, but he was 31-9, I believe, while he was here. Even you look back, McElwain and Muschamp won games. McElwain probably got out of here at the right time, but the other, I think you're right. Muschamp maybe could have stuck around a little bit longer. But I go back to Dan Mullen, and like, I know we say that the expectations are on the floor, but the expectations at Florida are still very high. It's still an expectation that you're not going to be where they are right now. So I mean, yes, there will be improvement potential immediately, right? But is 8-4 against the schedule they're going to have next year really going to be something that Florida fans are going to be excited about? Probably not. I mean, yes, it'll be better than what you've had, but with the schedule you're going to have, 9-3 feels like the floor. And so, again, I think it goes back to what are those expectations. You look at the SEC right now, there's 16 teams in the conference, something like that. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those teams are not ranked. Florida's one of them. Mm-hmm. And Mississippi State has a better record. Now, granted, context around that. The schedule's a lot harder. I get it. But you don't want to be one of the 6 teams in your whole conference when you've got that many teams in a conference. You don't want to be the one of only 6 to not be ranked, right? Like, I think that would be an expectation for Florida's next head coach is the first year you get to ranked and you stay ranked all season long. I think falling into the unranked is going to be where there's going to be some, gosh, are we really about to go through this again? There's going to be some fans out there that feel that way. I don't know the SEC championship first year is a realistic expectation. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't know if it's realistic. Is playoffs realistic first year? Because you can make the playoffs without making it to the SEC championship. Is a 10-2 or 9-3 Florida team getting to the championship or to the playoffs? Maybe. And if that's the case again, I kind of want somebody that's proven. Somebody that's shown us that they can coach a team either to the playoffs or, in Lane's case, I know he didn't make the playoff last year, but if not for Florida beating him, isn't that funny to think about? If not for Florida beating him, he would have made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing is, like, I don't mean so much that the bar of expectation is on the floor for everyone. It's just for the coach because they're coming into what has not been a successful coaching era, and everybody knows that. All of the biggest names in football, any analyst, any broadcaster, any commentator can tell you the same thing, that A, Billy Napier's such a nice guy, but he has to leave. B, whoever comes in next needs to do a 180 with this program. And that's something that I admire with Jeff Lebby a lot because he has only been with Mississippi State this is his second year with them, and they have done a 180. And yes, one of their schedule is harder and they are 4-2, but one of those 2 losses was overtime with Tennessee that looked like it could be anyone's game for a little bit. That's still a very talented football team. And with Jeff Lebby, I think that he took the defense and brought a lot of guys from the portal to make them a respectable one. That's why I think that any coach who comes in here to a program like UF should have the same expectation because you've seen other coaches do it. You should be able to do it yourself. And so if it's not a big fish and it's someone small, I'm going to have hesitations because last time someone small came in, like I said, it was Billy Napier. I didn't know who this guy was. I didn't know what he was going to do for our program. I didn't really have high expectations, and I'm glad that I didn't because I would have been so let down right now.
Yeah. Speaking of Mississippi State, that's the game this week. How are, we haven't really done a full breakdown this week of what that matchup looks like because I think everybody's been so focused on the next era of college or of Florida football that we've kind of forgot. We've still got a game on Saturday. It's a homecoming game. It's exciting. My first time being here for homecoming. It'll be great. I'm excited for it. But there's a lot of fun stats. At least I think they're fun. Maybe I'm just a nerd. But a lot of fun stats when you talk about this Mississippi State team. That 720 some odd days since they've won a conference game. That's a long time. Last time they won a conference game, they beat Arkansas 7-3, which is just, it's so gross to even think about. That's a terrible, yeah. But the last time they were in the swamp, this will be a fun one. 2010, Dan Mullen was the head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs, if I'm not mistaken. And they threw for 33 yards against Florida. Hold on, I got to show you reaction real quick. And Mississippi State won that football game. They threw for 33 yards and beat Florida at the Swamp.
So I do know the stat that it was 16 out of 17 games were won in the Swamp. And so that's the loss, was when they had 33 yards.
This was in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was 2011. Hold on. Let me pull this up real quick and make sure I'm not getting this wrong. I'm looking at Mississippi State's schedule. That's why I couldn't find Mississippi State. Saturday, October 16th, 2010, at the Swamp, a number 22 ranked Florida team hosted the Mississippi State Bulldogs. It was 10-7. Mississippi State won. They threw for 33 yards on offense. The guy later converted to being a tight end, if I'm not mistaken. It started out with Mississippi State going up 3-0. Then they rushed for a touchdown, and then they had the extra point. And then Florida rushed for a touchdown and got the extra point. That was in the third quarter. And then nobody scored again. It was a pretty rough game. That's back in 2010. Was that the Muschamp era? I believe it was. Pretty rough game the last time these two teams met. And then, or last time they met in the Swamp. Lord, what are your thoughts after hearing some of these crazy stats about Florida, Mississippi State, and what could be if this is a very different Mississippi State team, right? They're playing well. If Mississippi State goes out in what could be Billy's final game and beats them for the first time, for the first win for Mississippi State since 2023, when they beat Arkansas 7-3. Oh gosh, they only passed for 85 yards in that game. Gosh, that's so bad. Wait, hold on. They passed for 85 yards in that game. So the recipe for Mississippi State apparently is just to not throw for very many yards and win a defensive struggle.
I'm kind of speechless, and that doesn't ever happen to me.
This is the first, folks.
Yeah. Part of me is like, wow, I'm so glad that I don't remember that game back in 2010. Probably knew not to be around my mom. That's for sure. But if the same thing were to happen this year, since I know that he'll be gone the next day, I don't see any reason why. And you know what? I'm not saying that this is a good thing to do, because I think that the SEC should be, it's supposed to be a classy conference. Your Southeastern Conference, we run this game with class. We don't rush the field, because that's embarrassing. Who does that? But I can see a world where the stadium chants "Fire Billy," and it wouldn't be the first time that I have heard that in the Swamp. And so if they were to lose, you'd see two things: tears rolling down my face, and I won't say 90,000 people, but I'd say most of the student section, so I'll give you like 20, 30,000 chanting "Fire Billy," and that will be the last thing that he hears before he's fired. And that's almost crushing, but it seems deserving.
I will say, the last time these two teams met, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't a 10-3 situation. It was at Mississippi State just last year. Florida won 45-28. Much better result for Florida. Graham Mertz, 19-21 for 3 touchdowns. Mississippi State this year, though, much different team. We talked about that. They're 4-2. Their big signature win so far this year is they beat Arizona State Of course, that was in the middle of cowbell country, if I'm not mistaken. So they won't have that, at least on Saturday. And they'll be missing their top running back, Fluff Bothwell, which is a really cool name.
He's actually the person in front of Jaden Ball.
Yeah,
in leading. He's 6th and Jaden Ball's 7th.
Yeah, he's solid running back. Somebody that, Mississippi State will surely miss. Because I do think that this offensive or defensive line for Florida is banged up. It's probably a good thing that their best weapon on running the football is also banged up. And then at quarterback, Blake Shapen, he's thrown for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 16 times. Both of these teams, if you look for in terms of similar opponents, they've both played Texas A&M. A&M beat them 31-9. Obviously, last weekend, Florida also fell to Texas A&M. And then you mentioned eventually we will have the common opponent of Tennessee, which they lost 41-34. But it took overtime for Tennessee to pull that one out. Again, though, that was at Mississippi State. So I will say I think being at the Swamp is going to make a big difference in this game. If I had to guess, I don't really do this because I end up getting caught when I make predictions. But I think Florida's going to win. I think they send Billy out potentially in his final game. I think they're going to play hard for him. I think Florida can pull this game out. I think that the injury to Fluff Bothwell is going to be a big part of Mississippi State's offense. And I think that, from the Florida side of things, I think there's just so much talent on this team. I got to think that the talent wins out.
I personally don't give predictions anymore because I will jinx it. With Texas, I just sat and agreed with Nick. So I will sit and agree with you at what you just said, but I can't recite it. I do think that they'll play hard. I do think that the Swamp has a lot to do with it. And out of the 2 press conferences that I've gone to with Billy Napier on Wednesday and Monday, him saying that homecoming is like a big deal. We want to show out for the fans. Homecoming game is a big game. They really want to play well. And he kept saying like they're, going to be Gators for life, whatever. And like they always remember their homecoming games. And I'm like, I sure hope so. Like obviously I want them to win, but I also want him to be gone. So I'm just hoping that he's gone regardless. I mean, Jimbo Fisher left on a win, and he was gone whether they won or lost. So I'm just kind of hoping that it goes the same way with Billy tomorrow. Whether they win or lose, I'd rather them win, but I would rather have him be gone. So I'll agree with you, but I'm just hoping that either way, he's, putting his house up by Monday morning.
So I know we got fiery today with Lauren. I've enjoyed this segment of Sports Lab Overtime. But look, regardless of what happens on Saturday, win or lose, I do think that Billy's time is running out. I think that we are getting closer to that, whether it be Sunday or the end of the season or whatever it is, whatever they decide. I don't know what I've heard rumors they'd ask him to at least coach out the rest of the season, that kind of thing. I think they offered the same thing to Dan Mullen, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, he's a good guy. I think you said that earlier. He's a good man, good person, but the fit at the University of Florida as a head coach just hasn't worked out. I think the way that everybody kind of hoped it would. I mean, I think nobody was rooting. Well, I mean, some people maybe were actively rooting against the guy. I think everybody would have rather seen Billy Napier take this team to a playoff this year. I don't think any true Florida fan would have said, "Nah, I don't want to see Billy Napier take my team to the playoff. I'd rather him lose out." Nobody wanted that. But I think we're going to look back end of the season, a few years from now, and we'll say that University of South Florida loss is going to be the one that ultimately led to the demise of his time here. And it ends up being kind of a microcosm of what we saw with him at the helm. A team that is ultra talented, but just didn't live up to expectations. But Lauren, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me here on Sports Lab Overtime. We will definitely do this again, and maybe next time we'll be talking under some different circumstances, but I'm sure you'll continue to bring the fire as usual.
I try my best. Hopefully we can talk about who's going to take the job.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lauren. And we'll be back with Sports Lab Overtime next week.